A few weeks ago, I was filming Jamie Oliver in his kitchen studio in London when, in between recipes, Jamie mentioned a story he'd heard about the house he recently bought. According to what he'd heard, 400 years ago, there was a botched burglary, a murder, and the disposing of the thieved items in a lake that sits on the house grounds. So, I knew I had to ask. I said, Jamie, can I come and scuba dive in your lake and find that lost treasure? He did look at me a bit funny, but he said yes. So, with no time to spare, I jumped in the car along with my long-suffering and currently pregnant girlfriend Holly on our way to Spain's Hall. But wait, let me take a second to give you more details about the story. Spain's Hall is a very old estate stretching back 1,000 years. Incredibly, only 3 families have owned the estate during that time, with Jamie taking over only a few years ago. However, it was one dark and stormy night that this tragedy unfurls. It was William Kemp, the squire at the time, who accused his wife of being unfaithful. He later discovered that she had in fact not been unfaithful, so out of shame, Kemp took a lifetime vow of silence. But misery was foretold as the Raven, Finchingfield's local mystic, said of Kemp's vow that nothing but disaster would come from it. Ignoring the prophecy, Kemp instead decided to dig a lake to mark each passing septennial. A map from the 1600s shows 7 lakes, so over a 7-year period, that's 49 years of silence. Anyway, at some point Kemp's wife passes away. One day, Kemp, along with a servant, visit a nearby village. The weather turns foul and the pair seek refuge at an inn. While drinking, Kemp overhears a band of ruffians planning a robbery at Spain's Hall that night. Alarmed yet unable to break his vow of silence, Kemp pens a letter in haste for the staff at the estate and sends his servant off into the torrential night. Crossing over fields and swimming a river, the servant arrives soaked through and the letter is illegible. The staff surmise that the squire must be in dire trouble, so they set off to his rescue, leaving the estate all but empty. The ruffians arrive later, only to find a 10-year-old boy there, a member of the Kemp family. They murder him. They take all the valuables they can and run out of the estate across the grounds, which have now become so waterlogged that they can't move. So rather than get caught, they throw their heavy loot into the lake, never to be seen again. So a tale indeed. Now, I have to say that in 1904, the lake was dredged by the Ruggles-Bryce family, and they actually recovered a pristine set of plates. So that puts some validity to the story, which is good because some of the research I did didn't quite add up. However, it does indicate that the treasure has been found, although I am an optimist. And I believe that potentially all the treasure wasn't found, and since the last dredging, 120 years ago, there could be some really interesting things that have found their way in there over the years. So, I'm still very excited. It wasn't what you'd call a great day for diving exactly. The weather was particularly British and the lake itself looked less than inviting. Nevertheless, I got my kit set up while I waited for my dive buddy Jun-Ho, who was actually running late. I got a brew and went for a recce. Well, the conditions aren't great. From the surface, it didn't look like there would be much to see. It's time to consider which area the loot might be in. We know from the story the robbers ran towards the lake, but then they got stuck in the mud. They had 2 choices. It's 50-50. Did they run to the left side or the right side of the lake? And at which point did they just throw everything in? On Google Maps, you can see that the nearest village is Finchingfield, a village that easily stretches back as far as Spain's Hall in history. So that puts the probability of any undredged treasure on the northeast side of the lake. My dive buddy Jun-Ho is running late, so we are losing our dive window a little bit, which is fine. I've had a little look around, so when he gets here he can just jump in his gear and we'll get in the water. We were meant to be under the water for about 1.5 hours, but we don't have much time on the site. We'll probably have to reduce that maybe by half. Depends when he's going to get here. It's not too far away. With Holly settling in, the kit was ready to go. It was just a case of waiting. Jun-Ho arrived and we smashed through the kitting up. A brief dive plan and safety chat done, there was nothing left to do but get in as quickly as we could.
Okay.
We wanted to know the max depth before we started our search, so we swam into the middle of the lake and dropped down. Descending into the green murk, we found the depth as our hands slid into a bed of compacted silt.
Got 1.3 metres, same. Yeah.
Sticking to our plan, we headed towards the foot of the lake and split off into two directions. Jun-Ho took the left of the island and I took the right-hand side. Conker the dog came down to check in on us, and to be honest, he probably would have done a better job at searching than we did. The depth of the lake varied, but I'd describe it as painfully shallow. In most places we were essentially laying on the lake bed, which was in fact quite gravelly in places. That's where it wasn't covered in thick silt. Our time window was closing, so we had to wrap up the dive. However, I did find some things with my metal detector.
Oh god.
Fishing nets.
I mean, they're not exactly what I was looking for, but...
I mean, in the capacity of very British giving it a go, having a look, I think that it was a success in that respect. In actually finding anything of value, complete failure.
So, between success and failure, I had a lightning bolt of an idea. Me and Jun-Ho had done the exploration, and we had a good idea of the varying depths of the lake. We know there's never going to be great visibility in there, and perhaps we lack the experience of true river hunters. That's when it struck me. There's only one man for the job. A man who knows all there is to know about searching beneath the water for hidden treasure. A man with over 14,000 genuine historic finds, most of which reside in British museums. It was time to get underwater archaeologist Gary Bankhead involved.